Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Let me recognize Senator Inhofe for a question, additional question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. First of all, Mr. Chaudhary, I heard your response, and I was very pleased to hear that. Is it my understanding, is it accurate, your response to the senator, that this is not a practice that you are anticipating, or better yet, a stronger statement that you wouldn't use this practice for that type of fact-finding? What is your position on that issue?
Senator, my statement to Senator Blackburn was accurate, and I would not use that technology in any way to interfere with the constitutional rights of our military members. And I'll make sure that, if confirmed, I keep that at my highest priority.
Well, let me thank you very much, and I'm glad we had a chance for that clarification. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Now, let me recognize via WebEx Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of questions to Mr. Parker and Dr. Schaefer, not really questions, but both of you testified in response to the question of Senator Reid at the very beginning about geographic diversity, which is becoming a more and more serious problem. We've gone from about 50-50 on the various regions to 75-25 or so, and in the Northeast, it's a real problem. I liked your answer. You said the right thing, but I just want to emphasize that correcting this problem is not going to happen by itself. It's going to take conscious, deliberate strategies to place recruiting efforts, and as Dr. Schaefer, as you pointed out, one of the problems is there are no military facilities now, or virtually none, in the Northeast. So young people growing up don't see people in uniform. So I just I appreciate your answers, but I hope that you'll take cognizance of the fact that this is going to take more than intent. It's going to take some really direct action. Let me ask a provocative question about the whole military talent management. The military is the only organization that I know of that recruits people in their teens and 20s and then keeps them for their whole career. And there's nobody enters the system mid-career. Do we need to think about the option of bringing in people, particularly people with technical skills, who didn't necessarily enlist or join from one of the academies at a young age, but at the age of 40 have decided that they'd like to serve their country and they have a skill that we need? Dr. Schaefer, give me some thoughts on that. And I realize it's sort of a radical notion, but we have a talent problem throughout our society and in the military. And is that an option that we should be thinking about?
Senator King, thank you for your question. I definitely think that we should be thinking out of the box on these issues, and especially when we are thinking about our technical career fields. We have, explored the option of lateral entry, and I greatly appreciate the expanded authorities that this committee has given to the services regarding the expansion and increasing flexibilities within DOTMA. I've done quite a bit of work on that issue. The services are taking on those expanded flexibilities, but I think that we need to build on that, increasing that flexibility to be able to recruit the talent that we need right now, especially in this difficult recruiting environment. So if confirmed, I would definitely be thinking about these sort of out-of-the-box options for ways to bring more people into the Army.
Great. Thank you very much. And Mr. Parker, I hope you'll be thinking in the same way. Dr. Chaudhary, before I begin, you sent a shutter through Hanover, New Hampshire and the upper Connecticut River Valley when you characterized your sister as working at Dartmouth University. Dartmouth is not a university, it's a college, and it's very proudly, it goes back to the Dartmouth College case and Daniel Webster in the early part of the century. So if you ask your sister, she'll she'll straighten you out. I'm
Thank you,
somewhat
Senator.
teasing you here, but it's a special point in the history of my college that it's a college and not a university. You used the term when you were talking about with Senator Tuberville of the basing decisions being a strategic basing. I hope that you will take cognizance of the fact that there is no more strategic air refueling wing than the 101st in Bangor. That is the step over the North Atlantic that is such an important part of our system. So when you're talking about the KC-46s, please keep in mind the maniacs up in Bangor and the 101st.
Thank you, Senator. I will definitely do that. And as somebody who's received fuel from the maniacs on many times, AR-206 is probably one of the most familiar refueling tracks that I've received at gas to ensure my mission was complete from Maine so many times. And the one experience that I have is actually flying in approach in the weather, in a storm, and watching the runway break out in front of my face and see that beautiful runway at Bangor, Maine, and knowing that I can complete a safe mission. So I really, really appreciate and value everything that the Bangor, Maine airfield.
Keep that thought in mind when you're making decisions about the KC-46. Mr. Chairman, I'll have some questions for the record for Mr. Calvelli, a very important position that he's taking, critically important, I believe, and so I'll be following up on the record. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Scott, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Chaudhary, in July of last year, you wrote an op-ed for Foreign Policy News and referred to the Naval Air Station Pensacola incident as an indicator of the rise in extremist violence in the U.S. military. The shooter and terrorist Mohammed Saib Azrahmani was a member of the Saudi Arabian military, not a member of the U.S. military. Yet you use this incident as a rise of extremism in the United States military and justification to monitor our service members through artificial intelligence. You argue that artificial intelligence can be used to monitor our service members to keep tabs on if they are exhibiting extremist behaviors. In an article from The Atlantic, clearly not a conservative news outlet, they wrote about Communist China's use of A1 in September 2020, saying, she wants to use artificial intelligence to build a digital system of social control patrolled by precog algorithm that identify dissenters in real time. An algorithm assigns people a color code, green, yellow, or red, that determine their ability to take transit or other inner buildings in China's megacities. In a sophisticated digital system of social control, codes like these could be used to score a person's perceived political pliancy as well. Ancient Chinese emperors well understood the relationship between information flows and power and the value of surveillance. With A1, she can build history's most oppressive authoritarian apparatus without the manpower amount needed to keep information about dissent flowing to a single centralized node. Were you aware, and are you aware, that Communist China is using A1 technology to identify Uyghur Muslim populations to fuel systemic discrimination and persecution?
Thank you, Senator. I was not aware of that, and to address the comment, I fully believe that the men and women who serve, the vast majority serve with honor and integrity. I also believe that the constitutional rights of our military members should be protected, period. If confirmed, I'll follow the lead of Secretary Kendall in addressing extremism and ensure that the men and women who serve have the resources and tools to execute their mission effectively.
So the A1 you're advocating for to track our service members, how's it different than what Communist China is doing right now and how they're tracking Uyghur Muslims? How's it any different?
Thank you, Senator. I am unaware of the specific technology and the individual algorithms. The article that you reference was a approach to engage public discussion on addressing extremism, and it fell short, and I regret that. As such, I really believe that we should be protecting the constitutional rights of all of our military members.
Yep. Communist China is leveraging its A1 technologies to identify the political pliancy of individuals through the use of nanny apps. They scan for ideological viruses. Even staying off social media altogether is also not a solution, as that will also raise suspicion. Would you require members of the military to install apps so they can be constantly monitored?
Senator, I can categorically say that I would not do that.
Okay. Do you want the U.S. government to use A1 to track service members, as the Chinese Communist Party does, as though all U.S. service members are potential criminals and terrorists who need to be surveilled 24/7, have their electronic footprints recorded, regardless of their constitutionally guaranteed rights?
Senator, no, absolutely not. And if confirmed, I would make sure that we protect the constitutional rights of all of our military members.
So if what you just said is all true, then why did you say that before? And you know that the shooter in Pensacola was not in the U.S. military. You realize that?
Senator, the article was designed and intended to engage in public discussion on the issue of extremism in the military, and I do regret that. Absolutely, the men and women who serve, the vast majority, absolutely serve with honor, integrity, and excellence, and that's what I believe.
Have you met an extremist in the military?
Senator, I do not believe I've ever met one.
You have never met one, but you think it's important that we monitor them, monitor people in case they might be one.
Senator, again, I do not believe that we should monitor military members for extremism.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Peters, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to each of the nominees, congratulations on your nomination. Dr. Chaudhary, Selfridge Air National Guard Base in Michigan is the largest Air National Guard base in the entire nation. It has 9,000-foot runway, and it has access to the largest overland special use airspace east of the Mississippi, totaling over 17,000 square miles. Selfridge was previously the home to a single-engine fighter aircraft like the F-16, and despite the unparalleled resources and access, Selfridge unfortunately has continuously been passed over for future basing decisions. The Air Force has informed my office that there is an encroachment issue for single-engine jets in the South expanded clear zone due to a few residential homes that were built back in the 1970s. This issue is in direct contrast to both an agreement the Air Force made with Congress to grandfather in these existing homes and the base's history of operating F-16 and other single-engine aircraft since that time. So my question for you, Dr. Chaudhary, is if you are confirmed, will you ensure that the Air Force honors their previous agreement with Congress to grandfather the expanded clear zones at Selfridge Air National Guard Base, and will you commit to no longer using it as a metric against Selfridge during future basing decisions?
Thank you, Senator. And let me just first start by saying how much I value, in our discussion recently, I'm just proud to share how much I value all that Selfridge has contributed. And it just recently passed its 104th anniversary, and that is a testament to the men and women who serve there. And with regards to basing, I look forward to learning more. I don't know all of the details that you shared with me. However, I look forward to learning more about that process, how it occurred, and ensuring that opportunities for basing are done fairly and with transparency, so that the men and women at Selfridge have a mission that will execute. And I look forward to learning more about that in the future. So if confirmed, I look forward to working with the committee as well as you to ensure a fair basing process.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate our previous conversation. Look forward to having future conversations if confirmed. There's a lot to talk about and a lot of concerns that I have, so I will appreciate the opportunity to have that discussion and inform you on some of the past decisions that have been made and the challenges I think we have to deal with. So I look forward to that. Dr. Schaefer, Michigan is the home to a command and control CBRN response element, which is a key component of our nationwide CBRN response enterprise. It's comprised of units from the Army Reserve and the Army National Guard that rotate through the same missions, yet unfortunately some service members, specifically the early retirement credit, differ depending on the component that you're in. The unequal application of that benefit is contrary to DoD policy that directs uniform procedures for non-regular retirement. I would certainly hope, Dr. Schaefer, if confirmed, I can count on your support to help me correct this issue and to ensure that benefits regarding non-regular retirement are applied equally between the Army Reserve and the Army National Guard.
Senator, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. You absolutely have my commitment that I will ensure that they're applied equally.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. Mr. Calvelli, a May 2021 GAO report found that the DoD has at least 10 new programs under development in numerous mission areas involving the space domain. Many of these are large-scale, new startup programs that are going to require significant amounts of funding as well as manpower. The establishment of the U.S. Space Force and the maturation of our space bureaucracy certainly represent an opportunity to streamline, I believe, our acquisition process. So my question for you is, if confirmed, how will you build a space acquisition workforce which has the technical knowledge and practical experience to efficiently lead the DoD through the next phase of space system acquisitions?
Thank you, Senator. Having a workforce that's able to do that for the future is really a key to success that we need to do. How I would approach that would be to do recruiting of some of the top-notch folks that we can get our hands around by training, by just discipline and focus on meeting our schedule, cost, and technical commitments, and by just driving forward into the future. I think one of the biggest things that I, if confirmed, will try to bring is discipline. And discipline in terms of just pure program management. And where I grew up, I mean, the focus was purely on meeting your costs, meeting your schedule, and delivering your technical commitments on time and on schedule. And to me, I read that, I actually skimmed that GAO report from last May. I saw it was a great report. I think it's really important to really have a culture of program management discipline, and I think that's going to allow us also to go a little bit faster as well. So I think, if confirmed, I intend to bring that to the Space Force.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Peters, Senator Rounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by just thanking all of you for your service to our country. I'd like to begin just a quick question for Dr. Calvelli. In a statement for the record, as Principal Deputy Director for the National Reconnaissance Office, you were quite clear on the value satellites bring to our nation's national security. You said, and I'm paraphrasing, that satellites you helped launch supply enhanced intelligence capabilities for warfighters and improved decision-making advantage for our policymakers. With that in mind, what would be the impact if we were to decide that we would not identify space in the future as a warfighting domain, recognizing very clearly that we have adversaries that may very well have differing points of view? And are you aware of anything that would substantiate the suggestion that they have already moved in the direction of utilizing space as a warfighting domain?
So thank you, Senator. It's an outstanding question. I believe we need to treat space as a domain that we need to integrate in with other domains, whether that be sea, air, or ground. I think space gives us a strategic advantage as a nation, both economically as well as militarily. And I believe that as we go forward in the Pentagon with programs like JADC2, space needs to be fully integrated into that to take full advantage of the capabilities that space can provide to the warfighter. Is the term warfighting domain or just space domain? I honestly don't know. And if confirmed, something I would take a look at what the differences of that really means. What I think is really important, though, is that we are able to count on our space assets being there, whether that be peace, crisis, or conflict. The economy depends on space, the nation depends on space, the military depends on space. So I think we need to make sure that our architecture is resilient. I think we need to make sure that we maintain a technological advantage over our near-peer adversaries, particularly China and Russia. And I think we need to add new capabilities to our architecture to stay ahead of any threats.
Most certainly, it would appear that we should be in a position to defend our space assets. Fair statement?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And really, the question here is would the attack against our space assets, would they begin with the delivery a missile or something from the ground, or would it be something that would already have been stockpiled in space by our adversaries? Is that a possibility?
I think that's a possibility, but I will tell you that I would imagine anything that's the first volley in terms of a space war would end up being a cyber.
Thank you.
It's a lot less attribution than a missile being launched from somebody's country.
I most certainly have the opinion that we should not limit our ability to defend our assets in space, and I think we should be prepared for the possibility, this very strong possibility, that our adversaries may very well not have any problems with deciding that space could very well be a location where they could conduct military activities.
Right.
Would you have any problem with that statement?
No, sir, I do not.
Thank you. Let me go back for just a second, and I have to say that I have most certainly appreciated the opportunity to visit with several of you in my office. Dr. Chaudhary, I think we've talked quite a bit about AI, and I think in our discussions you made it very clear that you understand that this committee would never look upon the investigation or the use of AI, and the oversight of our men and women in uniform would never be considered to be an acceptable thing. Is that a fair statement, sir?
Senator, that is absolutely correct. And you have my commitment that we will protect the civil liberties and the constitutional rights of all of our military members, if confirmed.
Thank you. Let me go on to this. There's an item that I think is very important. In fact, there's been some more public discussions lately about PFAS and PFOB. And at Ellsworth Air Force Base, we've had for a number of years, because we have aircraft there, we also practice our firemen and women fight actually taking out the fires, stopping the fires from expanding and so forth. But when they test it, they have been using the PFASs, which is, and I'm going to probably mess this up, but it's perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl as chemicals that are in these firefighting liquids. There's been some discussion about the fact that some of those same chemicals may very well have been used in the creation of equipment for firefighters for years. But in this particular case, we've been concerned about the possibilities of that being in the groundwater in multiple locations around the United States. Would I have your commitment that as we continue to investigate and take care of the claims that come from water supplies and systems that have this in them, that you would work to make sure that those individuals that have their water supplies impacted by this, that they be appropriately treated, and that we do everything we can to clean up the water supplies that have been tainted? And furthermore, that we make sure that those individuals that might have been impacted in terms of their health, that we recognize it and we get to the bottom of it and do everything we can to make sure that they get the services needed to correct any health problems that they may have due to the release of this by the Air Force and other branches with regard to what they thought was simply a matter of practicing to put out fires?
Thank you, Senator. The challenge with the PFAS has been very, very close to an issue that I've been watching in the public domain, especially at our military bases. Our men and women in uniform deserve to have an environment to execute the mission that is free of contaminants, and that goes for surrounding communities of these installations. You have my commitment that I will give this my fullest attention, and I will work with the committee on understanding the current impacts, potential future impacts, and actions going forward to address them. So to answer your question, Senator, if confirmed, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Cotton, please.
Thank you all for your appearance here today. Congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Calvelli, is space a warfighting domain today?
Senator Cotton, I believe that we created the United States Space Force, so I would imagine it can be considered a warfighting domain.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the fact that we created it might suggest that we're a little bit behind the curve when it comes to engaging in that domain relative to Russia and China. Wars typically are not won just on the defense, right?
Right.
It's a combination of defense and offense. So do you believe that we need offensive space capabilities to be predominant in space?
I believe we need whatever capability that we can get that's going to protect our assets. I think that a day without space would be a really bad day for our country, whether that's in peacetime or in crisis and conflict. We need to make sure our space assets are always available for our warfighters and for our nation.
And it's fair to say that we depend on those space assets even more than does Russia or China, because we would be fighting away games against either of those countries, and they'd be fighting home games, right?
At this point in time, yes, sir, I think you are correct.
Yeah. So it's very important that we be able to defend everything that we have, both defend our legacy systems and that we design our satellites and other space assets going forward in a way that make them even more defensible.
I agree with that, Senator.
In every other domain, I think it's true in space, we have to be able to hold China and Russia's assets at risk as well with offensive capabilities.
I agree.
So the DoD is unfortunately littered with a lot of expensive programs that have gone wrong, where the taxpayer doesn't get what we paid for, and sometimes that's due to immature technology. Sometimes it's due to the leadership and management of programs. Sometimes, maybe every now and then, it's due to a little bit of congressional meddling and parochial politics back home. But are you going to be willing to take a sharp eye looking at all the programs we have, and if necessary, to end programs that aren't performing and that are not delivering value for the taxpayer and the capabilities that our troopers need on the ground and in the air?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I am a firm believer on delivering programs on cost, on schedule, meeting our requirements. And if there's programs that are awry or not heading in the right direction, I have no problem either taking corrective action or terminating them. Well, thank you. I know that you served a great career in the intelligence community, concluding at the NRO, and I look forward to you being an outstanding Assistant Secretary. Thank you, sir. Mr. Parker, several members of Congress earlier this year, including myself, commissioned an oversight report about Navy culture. Have you had a chance to read that report?
Senator, I have not read that report.
Okay. I'll send it to you. I encourage you to read it. We didn't do it ourselves. We just asked retired flag officers to review it. I provided it to the Secretary as well. And as a former surface combatant commander, I think he agreed with a lot of what we found. Unfortunately, the report found that 94% of sailors interviewed believe that the Navy suffers from a crisis in leadership and culture. This is especially true of the surface Navy. Some specific issues raised were an insufficient focus on warfighting skills, a culture of micromanagement, a zero risk and zero defect mentality that ended up jettisoning careers of chiefs or officers who'd served 20 or 30 years because they made a single mistake, and just the crushing administrative and paperwork regime. As you can see, those aren't really political issues or partisan issues. It's all about the kind of burdens we put on sailors and the distractions they face when they should be training for and operating in a warfighting environment. Could you please share your thoughts about all these non-combat related training programs and additional administrative tasks? Do you think these things are excessive? What can we do to reduce them? What specific kind of trainings might we consider eliminating to get sailors back focused on warfighting?
Senator, and thank you for your leadership on this issue, and I will review your report. I believe our surface warfare officers are absolutely critical to everything that the Navy needs to accomplish, and to readiness, and to the ability to have that worldwide deployable force. Issues of culture are deeply important in ensuring that our SWOs really have the ability to perform those duties and are best positioned to do so. I understand these are areas that the Navy is looking at very closely. in terms of talent management and the requirements on officers, as well as the manning piece, which I think is big as well, making sure there's adequate manning so that our officers can perform and they aren't overly fatigued. I agree with you on concerns with regard to a zero defect mentality. There are high standards that must be maintained, but there needs to be a balance because at the same time, everyone does make mistakes. So how do you really make that balance? Senator, if confirmed, I will absolutely take these issues seriously, and we'll work very closely with the Navy to help ensure we have the healthiest culture for our surface warfare officers.
Right. Good, thank you. My time's expired, but why don't we connect after you've had about 90 days on the job and talk about what you've learned, what we can take forward. I mean, our young men and women, they join the Navy for excitement and danger and adventure, whether they grew up sailing in New England or they grew up in the mountains of Arkansas and never seen the oceans and want to get out and see the world. We don't want to PowerPoint them to death. We want them to be ready to fight and therefore deter the war of the future on the high seas. So maybe about 90 days after you're on the job, we'll have a check-in.
I will be happy to do that, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Hawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Dr. Chaudhary, let me start with you. I want to come back to this article in which you advocated using artificial intelligence to monitor members of the United States military. You said that the time has come to shift the fulcrum, I'm quoting you, shift the fulcrum in the battle against violent extremism from reactive to proactive and take the fight to the extremists, meaning members of the military. You say the key to disrupting them is uncovering and understanding their initial behaviors, elements that are contained in their electronic footprints. In other words, disturbing patterns and other activities, views, statements that may evince a troubling pattern, but before they would actually do anything that is illegal, objectionable, or against military regulations, right? I mean, what am I missing here?
Thank you, Senator. To address the article, it was submitted to continue a public discussion on the issue of extremism. I believe it fell short, and I regret that. But I do want to be clear that the vast majority of men and women who serve with honor, serve with integrity, and serve with excellence. And I believe that the constitutional rights of all of our members of the military need to be protected. If confirmed, I would follow the lead of Secretary Kendall to ensure that the mission is and guidance under extremism is accepted.
Well, I've heard you give that answer, and I want to be clear. I think that you've served with honor and integrity and excellence, and I just want that reflected in the record. And I thank you for your service. It's been long and varied to our country, so thank you for what you've done. But I have to tell you that the views that you advocate here, and it's not just views. I mean, you certainly did start a public discussion. I mean, if that was the goal, you have absolutely achieved it. You have started a public discussion, and what you're advocating here, I think, is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Let's read some more from your article. You say a common thread of all of these threats is that they find their origins in rudimentary human behavior, subtle in nature. These behaviors often go unnoticed by frontline managers and supervisors who miss signals of toxicity that worsen until they lead to more pronounced behaviors. So you advocate monitoring, gathering data, using artificial intelligence to monitor members of the military whose activities are not illegal, whose activities are not in violation of the military code, the Code of Justice, to monitor them because they might lead to behavior that you would later deem toxic. I mean, this is exactly what our opponents in China do with their social credit regime, where they rank their citizens and monitor their every behavior online and elsewhere. I just am astounded that you are advocating this. What led you to advocate this? By the way, this was written in July of last year, right? July 2021? I mean, this wasn't like 10 years ago. It was just last year, right? That's the question. July.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I have that right.
Yes.
So what led you to advocate the use of artificial intelligence to monitor military members just, 7 months ago, 8 months ago?
Thank you, Senator. And again, the publication was intended to enter the public discussion, and I do regret that. And
well, wait, what do you regret? You regret that you published it, or you regret that you advocated using artificial intelligence to gather information on members of the military?
Yes, sir. Let me be clear and state again that AI should not be used to monitor military members.
When did you change your mind on that? Because you just wrote this in July. It's February. So when did your mind shift? That's a pretty quick change in a pretty quick amount of time. When you were nominated?
No, sir. Senator, I regret the article, and
But when, that's not my question. I know you regret it. You're getting grilled on it. When did you change your mind about it? You have advocated in print a policy, and by the way, it's not just this article. I mean, for years now, you said in May of 2016 that you think we need authentic leaders with a message who are ready to deliver for our nation with passion and conviction. These are the leaders that will guide the future of our nation, not by being colorblind. You said in November of 2015 that the military has a culture of xenophobic cronyism. And then by 2021 in July, you're advocating using artificial intelligence to monitor your fellow members of the military in order to root out behavior that you disapprove of. So this is a long-standing set of views. Now you say you've changed them. When did you change them?
Senator, the article was submitted to enter the discussion on extremism. I regret it fell short, and my views on this are clear. The men and women who serve in our military serve with excellence. They serve with honor, and I've seen it in my career, and I served alongside them, and I truly believe that. I also believe that constitutional protections and feel that their constitutional protections should be protected at all times. And so I don't advocate AI to monitor our military members, and if confirmed, I will follow Secretary Kendall's lead on this issue and on extremism, as well as Secretary Austin's lead on extremism, and ensure that our military members have the resources to do the job that they are expected to do.
Well, my time has expired, Dr. Chaudhary, and you're right about the constitutional issues that this raises. I think this would be grossly unconstitutional to consistently and constantly monitor members of the military. And as someone who has vociferously objected to China doing it, who has in our own country fought our own tech companies who, as you know, monitor every keystroke that Americans take, follow them around without their permission on the web, sell their data without their approval. I think that is so objectionable when private companies do it, but let alone our government doing it to members of the military. I think this is just astounding, and I'm frankly astounded that you've been nominated in light of these views. I think it's exceptional. So I thank you for your service. I cannot support you for your nomination for these reasons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. I want to thank the witnesses and the nominees for their previous service to the nation and for their commitment to serve again. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm sure my colleagues do, to ask you questions. And with that, I will declare the hearing adjourned.